Okay, I'm going live. This is the bit where I'm probably live and don't realize it, so I'm going to talk to myself just in case you can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Ah, I can see myself. I think I'm live. If you can hear me and if you can see me, leave a little comment and say hello. If you can't hear me or see me, then there's no point me giving you instructions because you can't hear or see it. And already we've got some viewers. Let's see what we've got. We've got Sarah saying hi, Sheena saying hi. We'll give it a minute and let a few people join while I explain what we're going to be doing today. Hi, Giovanni. Okay. Nice to be back. Thanks for having me. Today, we are talking about plot and structure. One of those things that many, many children find difficult, or at least one of the things that people really fixate on. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. Letting the numbers rise. People are saying hello. Give me a little hi in the comments so that I know that you're here. Hi, Saba. And if you can hear crunching and snapping sounds in the background, it's because my dog is chewing a toy that I gave him to keep him quiet. And it turns out he's just being noisy with the toy. So can you hear any crunching? Maybe not. Hi, Tane. Hello, Isaac. We've got lots of people joining now. And we've got Sheena being my loyal wing woman from the comments. So do ask questions today and I'll try to get to them. Sheena's going to help send them in my direction. And I've also got a special guest joining me soon. So I will introduce her very soon. Getting lots of hellos. So while we just wait for more people to join, I'm going to introduce myself. Some of you will have met me before. Some of you might not. My name's Alexander Rosenberg, also known as Ali. I'm going to rename myself as Ali on this call so that, you know, we're all friends here. And you might already know me from some of the Facebook Lives I've done in these groups. You might have already seen some of the videos on LinkyThinks.com. You might know me as the author of the LinkyThinks word wheel books, which are going to be useful today. So do have them handy if you've got them. And also the author of the relatively new descriptionary book, Humanoids Edition, with lots of character description. So that's how some of you might already know me, through weird drawings and words like this. And if I'm meeting you for the first time, hello, what a pleasure it is to work with you. So today is just a free little session where we're going to talk about a few things that might be helpful to as many of you as possible. I do run proper group classes that you can find. I've put all the links in the little caption of this video. So if you're interested in looking at what classes I've got to offer, including a masterclass tomorrow, which is all about ideas on the spot, how to think of ideas under the pressure of an exam, and then the January, February courses, which are coming up next term, you can see those on the linkythinks.com/classes link. You can also find my physical resources, like the books I just showed you, on the online shop, and also the online resources on linkythinkscourses.com, which is also all in the caption at the top if you want to have a look at that soon. There is a little special discount just for tonight to reward those of you that watch live. And that is just the word plot, P-L-O-T, plot. So if you use that code for any resources this evening, then that'll knock off 10% for you. Okay, we've got a nice number of people, so we're going to get started in a second. One last thing to tell you, if you didn't already know about it, is the LinkyThinks big character creation competition, which for which the deadline has been set at January the 15th. So that is where you can use your descriptionary book to design your own character. If you look in the middle section of the book where you can design your own characters, and write a paragraph that could fit into a story like some of these. If you want more information about that, just follow LinkyThinks on Facebook. Go and look, and there's a video where I explain all about that. So today is all about how to structure a story, how to plot it out, what happens, and how to keep things simple, how to set the scene, how to start with style and end with style. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with. So I'm hoping today will be useful. Before we get our teeth into that, I thought I'd introduce today's guest. I'm very, very pleased to introduce my guest today. She is a student of mine, currently in my November-December courses. And I think she's keen to meet you all. So I'm going to welcome Sarah into the chat. Everybody give Sarah a round of applause. We'll be able to hear it from the windows echoing around the country. Sarah, are you there? Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm ever so well. All the better for seeing you. Nice to have you with us. Now, when did I last see you? I think I saw you on Thursday, didn't I?
Yes.
So you get the honor and privilege of seeing my face another time this week. So, Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's an interesting fact about you, a hobby, an interest?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I live in London and I'm in year 5. I started Ali's class during lockdown and I attended one of his masterclasses. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I decided to continue. And I'm always looking forward to his lessons because they're very fun and interesting.
That's so nice of you to say. I didn't actually put you up to saying that. It sounds like I've paid you to say nice things about my lessons. Sorry, carry on. Please don't let me stop you. Continue.
Okay, and over the courses, Ali has taught me brilliant strategies. And yes.
Oh, that's good to know. Someone's asking, how old are you, Sarah? Well, you're in year 5. So how old are you? You are
10.
You 10 already? Yeah, you are 10. Oh, yes, of course, because it was your birthday just a couple of months ago, wasn't it? I remember. So we've already got, we've got Felicity saying hello. And we've got a few people saying hi to Sarah. Some people saying that they're in London, they're in year 4, some people in year 5. Good. So, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. And a lot of what we're going to talk about, you'll have done with me already. But I thought it would be good to start off by just talking about the difficult thing of coming up with ideas and what a story should include. Now, would you agree with me, Sarah, that the thing people get most stuck on is what to cram into the story?
Yes.
I see so many students who get so wrapped up. Can everybody see you, by the way? I'm going to put you on a gallery view. There you go. The thing that people get really stuck on is, I can't think of any ideas. And they sit there staring at a blank piece of paper, just going, what should I write? 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 And then their head explodes. So the thing that we want to help people with today is keeping things simple and reminding them that when you've got to write a story or an essay in an exam, you don't need to write the next Harry Potter novel. Is that a fair point, Sarah?
Yeah, because you need to keep it simple.
Exactly. And you don't even have to write the next chapter of a Harry Potter novel. People think that it's all about the ideas, it's all about the plot, it's all about what happens. But actually, what I'm going to show everyone today, and what you're going to help me show everyone, is that actually, if we keep the plot and structure really simple, we can show off high quality writing without getting tangled up in all what happens. So, before we do anything else, I wanted to ask you, do you think that every story that you write and every exam that you do has to be brand new ideas, never before written, the most original story that's ever been put down on paper, on the spot, in 30 minutes, off you go, inspiration?
No.
What do you mean? Why not?
Because you could do like Well, you do have to do it in the time allowed. You do have a time set to do the writing, of course.
Correct.
But you can, you don't need brand new ideas. You can always maybe take inspiration, but put it in your own words.
Yes, that's true. But also, if you've done loads and loads and loads of practice, like you have been doing with me, Sarah, and you've got a really good understanding of all the different techniques that go into a story, on the day of an exam, as long as it fits the brief you've been given, as long as it matches the task and is relevant to what you've been asked to do, you can write a similar story to what you've written before for your tutor or for your parents. The
examiner's not going to ask and say, have you done this before? Or...
Exactly. They're not going to go, hang on, Sarah wrote this 3 weeks ago for Ali. They're not going to do that. And also, let me tell you, there is no author alive in the world who has to write a brand new original story off the top of their head in 30 minutes twice a week for 18 months or whatever, like a year 5, 6 student has to do for their 11 plus. That's crazy. J.K. Rowling doesn't do that. David Walliams doesn't do that. And I tell you what, they would struggle if they had to. So to put you all at ease, deep breath. It's not about sitting under a tree waiting for divine inspiration to strike and for some brilliant ideas to pop into your head. It's about getting a clear structure down. And then what makes a quality story, Sarah?
Good use of literary devices, but that doesn't mean you cram too much in, like simile, 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 simile. And you don't repeat the same literary device. You have to vary it.
Yeah, so a nice balance of techniques is the answer, isn't it? That's what we want. We want all those literary devices in a nice balance with a bit of plot that takes you on a few simple steps. Now, because of what I just said before about how you can recycle good ideas that you've used before. Obviously, if you're in year 3 or 4, you don't want to start doing this yet because you still want to learn lots of new good ideas. You don't want to write the same story that you've been writing since year 3. But if you're in year 5, 6, and you're starting to learn really good phrases, techniques, maybe you've found some of them in your LinkyThinks word wheels. You can use them again and again in different ways and practice using them, develop them into your own. And on the day of the exam, it's like you've got a bank of good ideas sitting up here ready for you to use them.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you. Sarah, have you seen, when you got your word wheels and descriptionary, did it come in a parcel like this?
Not my word wheel, but my descriptionary did.
Your descriptionary did, yeah, because you got your word wheels a while ago. So this is the LinkyThinks surprise storytelling parcel, which you can order your products to arrive in this. I actually got a little frog hovering over my shoulder here as well. And when you open the frog's mouth, should we try and do it now? This one's actually not put together, but let's try. You get this satisfying sound, hang on. And it opens up, hang on, into a poster. And what's at the top of the poster, Sarah?
Sentences to start a story, so you can start it by waking up, straight into the action, or anticipation.
Anticipation meaning building, suspense and drama. And you've also got at the bottom of the page
sentences to end a story, so you can end it with cliffhangers, resolutions, or rhetorical questions.
Correct. So we're going to just look at a few of those now, and it's worth memorizing some of these. So I don't know whether you've already memorized some of these or whether you've got some of your own that you've memorized, but let's just have a quick look-see at some good phrases that you could store up in your mind, and all these different options for how to start a story. It's just good to have them logged there so that when the time comes, you're not sitting there staring at a blank piece of paper like a zombie. Let me know when you can see the screen, Sarah.
I can see it now.
So Sarah, just read out 2 of your favorite ones from Waking Up. Just pick 2.
I like exploding from under my covers. I sprung to my feet. Today was the day. Nice.
So that's just a nice, simple couple of sentences that you could use for any story which starts with the beginning of the day. Exploding out from under my covers, I sprung to my feet. Today was the day. Do you want to pick another?
Yes. With the shrill screech of my alarm clock echoing in my ears, I hauled myself out of bed.
Yeah, nice one. So that one is maybe more when you're not looking forward to the day.
Yeah.
You could use that one when you're like, oh, can't be bothered waking up today. Why don't we jump to anticipation? Why don't you pick a couple of sentences that you like there? So this is where we really want to build in drama and excitement.
The tick, tick, tick of the clock taunted me, reminding me with every second that time is running out.
Very nice. So that tick, tick, tick of the clock, that onomatopoeia, that repetition, and even the tick, tick, tick of the clock taunted me, that added alliteration really builds in that sense of we're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting, and that keeps the reader gripped. Should we look at some sentences to end a story? Why don't you pick one cliffhanger that you like?
Okay. In an instant, the nightmare had come true. They knew that life would never be the same again.
Nice one. So that is a nice way to end a story in a way that you're basically saying what has happened in this story has changed the lives of the characters. Do you want to pick a resolution?
Sure. Breathing a deep sigh of relief, I knew how lucky I'd been to have made it out alive.
Yeah, nice one. So that could be after some sort of scary story or something like that. So we could even use that in one of the stories we're going to look at today. So there's just a few examples. But if you have some of these stored in your mind, you're going to find it easier to come up with ideas on the day of the exam. And like I say, tomorrow's masterclass, there are 2 places that I've put aside that are still available if anyone wants to join, where we're going to go a bit deeper into the planning techniques of an exam situation. We're not going to spend too much time on planning today. Sarah, do you remember in one of the classes we did a little while back, we talked about the timelines of stories?
Yes. So
basically, when in a character's life this story is taking place and how long the story spans.
Yes. Like you don't start a story, you wouldn't start a story from the beginning, so when a person is born till when the person dies.
Yeah, that's a lot to cram into a half-an-hour exam and a lot to cram into a short story. Once upon a time, a baby was born, and then you go all the way to, no, we don't have to do that. We can zoom in on certain sections of their life. But actually, those sections can be smaller and more specific than we think. So I'm going to just share the screen again. And by the way, anybody watching at home, don't be afraid to ask questions in the comments as we go along. I might not see them, but I've got my handy wing woman, Sheena, to help if I don't. So sorry, can you see the word timelines?
Yes.
So if we got a title in an exam like write about a time you were proud of yourself, okay, that's a common sort of title. Write a story about a time you were proud of yourself. And I decided that I wanted to write about winning a competition at school. Okay, that's just my simple concept for the story. Can you read out this timeline for me?
Wake up, have breakfast, travel to school, competition, win, travel home, go to bed.
Thanks, Sarah. Now, that is a lot in terms of plot. So that story is going to contain a lot of explaining what's happening and possibly not very much in describing all the lovely gritty details of how it felt and the experiences and the surroundings and all that stuff. Yeah. So Sarah, if you were to zoom in on this timeline, if you were to just pick a couple of steps, what would you pick to zoom in?
Well, I would say travel to school, competition, and then leave it there till the judges are about to announce the results.
Oh, so you would actually leave it on a cliffhanger. You would just have that build up, traveling to school, describe the actual event of, let's say it's a singing competition, describe the singing, and then leave it just as they're about to announce the results. That could work. That could work. What's another way you could do it?
You could just do the competition. So just describe the whole competition and then leave it.
You could actually just tell a whole story that focuses on that little section there. You could also even focus on just part of the competition. Can I tell you how I would write it? I would maybe start straight into the action, waiting in the wings, describing how nervous I am, using techniques like show, don't tell, talking about my heart pounding and the roar of the crowd echoing in my ears and all these different things where I'm basically waiting to go on. And then I might describe walking onto the stage, possibly opening my mouth to sing, and that moment when nothing comes out. Now that, as in 3 steps, could be enough for a story if I built in enough description and lovely visualization of what's going on and my feelings and the surroundings and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I want people to know that they don't have to cram in all this information. Let's look at another example. A holiday to remember. That's a really common type of title. Just describing a holiday. Do you want to read the timeline I've written here?
Pack bags, aeroplane, arrive, day 1, skiing, day 2, hiking, day 3, dolphins, day 4, the beach, dinner, fly home. Okay.
Now this looks a bit crazy, but you would be amazed at how many stories I see like this, where they start right at the beginning and the end, right at the very end. And first of all, I don't know what holiday you've gone on where you're doing skiing, hiking, swimming with dolphins in the beach all in one place, but sounds like an exciting place. How would you zoom in? Where would you focus?
You could focus on just the aeroplane, so it could be a very dramatic flight.
It could be. The holiday to remember could just be memorable because maybe there was some turbulence on the aeroplane and it caused you some distress, and you discuss and describe all those different feelings that you had. I might focus just on one day. I might focus just on the day where I went swimming with dolphins and maybe the dolphin bit me. I don't know. Just something simple within that day. You really don't have to do the whole holiday. It can just be the part of the holiday that's memorable.
Yeah.
Let's look at another example. Alien planet. Don't get that as much in exams typically, but it's possible. Alien planet. Read the timeline for me, Sarah.
Prepare for mission, take off, arrive, see planet, meet aliens, alien attack, destroy aliens, conquer planet.
Right. So that's, again, a lot to cram in. If we want to describe all these fascinating elements of a story, that's going to be too long. So where would you zoom in?
Maybe meet aliens and alien attack, or you could just focus on the alien attack.
Absolutely. Or just focus on seeing the planet and meeting the aliens. Or even, if you really do a great job of setting the scene, which we're going to talk about in a minute, if you do a great job of describing the setting, we don't even have to meet the aliens. We can just describe seeing the planet and maybe having some sort of clue or hint as to what's going to come with the actual aliens. Maybe we see footprints. Maybe we see a trail of slime. But we can keep it simple. Sorry?
So you can, at the end, maybe you can describe the footprints and then just leave it there.
Exactly, on a bit of a cliffhanger, where it hints that maybe we're going to meet the aliens later. Another example, the football match. How many people at home love writing about football? I see it all the time. Sarah, are you a football fan?
No.
Me neither, really. Me neither. But it is possible to write a great story about football, but you know who the worst people at writing about football? Who?
The fans, they are more focused on writing all the rules, like I don't know, like it can't go out to the court, or you don't score a goal because it goes over the net, instead of focusing on the language and how it's meant to be written.
Exactly. Basically, people who love football write about all the technicalities of the game very often, and they don't make it an exciting story. So let's just have a look. This is the sort of plot of a story about football that I often see children write. Do you want to read it to us?
Sure. Training for match, kick-off 1-0, 1-1, free kick 2-1, 2-2, penalty, score winning goal and celebrate. Thanks,
Sarah. I can tell that you're as much of a non-football fan as me, because you said 1-0 instead of 1-0, and you also called it a court instead of a pitch, which is, when I was your age, I remember the one and only time I ever scored a goal, I said, I goaled. And they were like, you scored. So I was always getting the terminology wrong. Anyway, we could tell a really great story just in the build up to that penalty where there's taking a shot and it may or may not go in the net. It could be a story that lasts 30 seconds in the characters' lives.
Yeah, so you could, in 2 paragraphs maybe, you can just describe maybe how the ball shoots through the air. So basically a 20-second event in 2 paragraphs maybe in slow motion.
Exactly. Maybe more like 3 or 4 paragraphs, depending on what the exam is. You don't want to write too little, but you're absolutely right. The 20-second event, you know, and if you really build in drama, it's almost like time passes in slow motion. So you could really describe it in that moment, you know, hearing the echo of the crowd, the heart pounding in the chest, all that stuff of the tension of the footballer, you know, taking a run up and his toe flicking the side of that ball and describing it spinning through the air, cutting through the air like a knife, whatever. All this sort of descriptive stuff that could make a story really brilliantly visual and dramatic. So what I thought we could do, Sarah, is talk about plotting out in 4 simple steps, how to think about an exciting story in 4 simple steps. Now, did you ever do the story mountain at school?
Yes.
I don't really like the story mountain very much. It's okay when you're in year 2 or 3. Just tell us quickly what the story mountain is and we'll move on from it.
So it's basically like you have the beginning, which is like all calm. Then you go up, it gets a bit more problematic. Then you have maybe a dilemma. So like, where do you go? What do you do? Then you get solutions, all live happily ever after the end.
Right. So it's where the trajectory of the story builds up to some sort of crescendo, to some sort of dramatic moment, and then goes down again. But not all stories have to do that. So I want to give people a little bit more of an option, or more options for how a story can develop. And I liked...
I think story mountains are more useful when you end like a resolution, because when you have a story mountain, you're not likely to end on a cliffhanger. Exactly.
So it's quite nice to think about more options that, you know, different ways to end a story, different ways to develop a story, because it doesn't always have to build up. Sometimes you can start straight in the action. Sometimes you can end with drama. So we'll talk about that. Do you remember my temperature plan method?
Yes.
Now, just to warn everyone, this is not a method for planning that you might use in an exam, but it's a really good way to think about how a story can progress. So can you see that, Sarah?
Yes.
Can you just read out that little top paragraph in bold for me?
Okay. A story should take the reader on an emotional journey. Think of each paragraph as a change in the temperature. Using the flow chart below, think about how you could structure a story in 4 simple steps.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, we'll just talk about the different temperatures that we're referring to here. And by the way, everyone, this worksheet and others like it are available on the Creative Writing Hub on the online resources section of the LinkyThinks website. So you can sign up to those later on. So we've got cool, toasty, heating up, roasting. And these are just my way of categorizing different elements of a story. So what part of a story might be cool, Sarah? Calm, safe, and gentle.
Maybe the beginning. So it's all calm. You can maybe describe the settings. So it's all no drama, nothing like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be at the beginning, but often it is. And then when things are getting toasty, what do we mean by curiosity and intrigue?
It's getting a bit more problematic, and things are beginning to get a bit more
maybe a little bit more dramatic or tense.
Yeah, dramatic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Only a little bit. Maybe it might even just be a clue that something bad is going to happen, or even a clue that something exciting or happy is going to happen. It doesn't have to be negative. Yeah. And then heating up, emotion and anticipation. What's that word, anticipation? We used it earlier.
Yeah, so it's like it's getting very dramatic now, and things are going wrong, and not necessarily wrong, but mostly wrong.
Yeah, or at least anticipation means that you're expecting something to happen. So that there's some sort of expectation of something dramatic to come. And then roasting, obviously drama, tension, excitement. This is where maybe the real drama.
Like a cliffhanger.
Well, you could, if you ended when it's roasting, it could be a cliffhanger, yeah. But there's lots of ways of doing it. So let's have a look at this flowchart. Now, for anybody who isn't sure what they're looking at here, let me explain. You've got these almost like columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And the idea behind these is that you can follow a particular route of a story and take the temperature up and down as you go. So for example, you might start a story by introducing or describing a character, all nice and cool, chilled out. And then from there, this character starts a journey. Ooh, things start to get a little bit more exciting. Perhaps on the journey, this character has some sort of idea. Ooh, this leads on to something that takes us in some sort of dangerous or dramatic direction, and we leave it on a cliffhanger. So that is a very simple one where it goes from cool to toasty to heating up to roasting. The temperature just builds and builds and builds, and we leave it hot. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yes.
However, there are other ways you could take a story as well. Why don't you pick a route that you like, and we can talk about an example story that maybe does that.
Okay. So you can say describe setting.
Mm-hmm. So we start off by just setting the scene, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Find something unusual.
Ooh, maybe we find something unusual on our little journey.
Danger.
This leads us to danger.
And then a twist.
And then a twist where basically something unexpected happens. So that could be anything. So describing a setting could be that you are on the beach, having a lovely time on the beach. Maybe you are, just relaxing, sunbathing, and you describe the rushing and whispering waves, and you describe the grainy sand between your toes, and you're describing all this lovely stuff. And it might be. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. That lovely tranquility of the sea, and just set this lovely, relaxing atmosphere. And then perhaps as you're strolling along the beach, you feel something hard beneath your feet under the sand. Ooh, that's odd. And you shuffle it, you sort of dig and shovel away the sand to reveal the spike, the stinger of some sort of strange crab creature.
But then it turns out to be dangerous.
Right. So it turns out that when you stood on it, it pricked the sole of your foot. And that leads you to panic. So we're in this danger zone now where you think, oh my goodness, I've been stung by some deadly crustacean. And the twist is that it was just a toy that had been washed up on the shore and been buried by the sand. It was just made of plastic. Yeah. That's just something I made up off the top of my head. But you see how that's quite a simple story. We describe the setting. We describe standing on something sharp. Ouch. We dig it up and we realize it's something really dangerous. And then we find out it's not actually that dangerous after all. But if we describe every element beautifully, that could make a really lovely dramatic story. Do you want to pick another route now?
Yeah.
Excuse me, my screen seems to have exploded there. Carry on, Sarah.
Introduce or describe the character.
Mm-hmm.
Makes the wrong choice.
Yeah.
Then has an idea.
Yeah.
And then a cliffhanger.
And then a cliffhanger, yeah. Now, that's quite similar to, if you go to your descriptionary book, Sarah, do you remember the story of I'd Rather Be a Penguin?
Yeah.
The one about the ballerina?
Yes.
Similar to that story, because can you see we've got the character description in pink at the top?
Yeah.
I won't ruin the ending for anyone who's not read it, but that's a very similar structure to that story, and sort of similar to Careful What You Wish For, where somebody wishes for their bedroom to turn into sweets and chocolates and it goes terribly wrong. So all of the stories that I like to write and that I like to read are basic in structure and plot, but really exciting in the way they're written. So should we have a look at how we could use this temperature plan way of thinking to develop a story?
Yeah.
So if you look at the bottom here, somebody's asking, where can I get this sheet? You can go on the LinkyThinks online resources section of the LinkyThinks website. And this is available in the Creative Writing Hub. But if you sign up to the LinkyThinks bundle, you'll get everything on there. And if you use the word plot as a coupon, then you'll get 10% off today only. That offer expires at midnight tonight when I turn into a pumpkin. So, see, Sarah, that's why I keep you here, because you laugh at my jokes. That's the only reason you're here. You actually don't know how to read or write. That's what people don't realize. You're totally illiterate, but you laugh at my jokes, so I keep you in the class. It's not true, of course. So can you just read out what's in those little boxes? So if I picked, if the top box is, the top boxes here are the route that I've taken. Can you just read those out for me?
Sure. Describe setting, find something unusual, danger, and then twist.
Lovely. Okay. Now, that's the route I've taken on the flowchart. But now read out my ideas for the actual specifics of the story.
Okay. Rainforest, a rustling in the leaves, a scary spider, and the spider is kind.
Okay. So this is just a story where I am wandering through the rainforest. I describe the setting, how I'm feeling, all the different five senses. And then I hear a strange rustling in the leaves that alerts me to something. Ooh, things get a bit toasty. And then I see this horrendously scary spider that I'm convinced is venomous and lethal. But then it turns out the spider's kind. Now, that actually doesn't sound like a very exciting story, does it?
No.
It's pretty basic. In the comments, tell me if you think that sounds like a fascinating story or whether it sounds a bit too basic. I'm interested to know, because we're actually going to look at this exact story in a second. I suspect that lots of people will think, it sounds a bit basic and boring. Yes, see, somebody's already said boring. So let's prove them wrong, shall we, Sarah?
Yes.
So here is, there it is, my story that uses that exact structure. So just so everybody knows, the first paragraph is going to be describing the setting. The second paragraph is going to be hearing that rustling in the leaves. The third paragraph is going to be describing the spider. And the fourth paragraph is going to be the twist, where it turns out to be friendly. Shall we take turns reading paragraphs, Sarah?
Yes.
Do you want to start or shall I start?
You can start.
Okay, so I'll do one, you do two, and go on from there.
Yeah.
Trudging through the dense rainforest, the gnarled, tangled vines wrapped themselves around my ankles like hungry snakes. I marched on. Above me, trees blocked the sky, only allowing small glimmers of light to squeeze through. Droplets of sweat formed on my forehead, trickling down my cheeks. Like walking through glue, the air felt thick and humid, and an orchestra of squeaks, squawks, and hoots echoed from the trees above. The ground was alive with crawling insects, but I tried my best not to think about it. A shiver ran down my spine at just the thought.
Pausing for a rest, I dropped my backpack and leaned drowsily against a tree. Its bark was damp and slimy. Like a dog, I panted heavily until I caught my breath. I closed my eyes for a moment. Just above my left ear, I felt the vibrations of tiny feet and the faint sound of scuffling across the tree. My eyes snapped open. My legs sprung into action and I spun round in terror. There it was.
Staring back at me were 1,000 glowing eyes like polished rubies. Dripping fangs seemed to grin in hunger from a clump of spindly legs. I felt my throat tightening as my knees began to tremble beneath me. Spiders had always been my worst nightmare, but this one was like nothing I had ever seen. Acid green dots peppered its back, and a layer of thick black bristles sprouted from its legs. Surely this was the most deadly, evil creature in the world. Would this be the end of me? Cautiously, I edged away, desperate to escape. Slowly, slowly, I tried not to make any sudden movements, but a rotten log caught my foot, flinging me onto my back in the moist, stinky leaves. I peered upwards, right into the spider's devilish eyes. Without warning, it launched itself from the tree and came hurtling through the air in my direction. My eyes scrunched shut and every muscle in my body turned to stone. It had landed on me. Don't move, don't move, don't move, I thought to myself, hoping it would simply go away. My stomach churned in horror as I felt its velvety feet tickle across my neck and over my shoulder. Down my chest and into my lap it crawled. Then it stopped. Silence.
Nervously peeling my eyes open, I found the spider, to my amazement, curled up and fast asleep. It was nestled into my lap like a kitten. A sigh of relief escaped from my lips. Of course, I was glad it did not want to attack me, but now that it was snoozing on my legs, I was unable to move. Gently, I cupped my hands around it, lifting it from my lap before clambering onto my feet. It may have had the eyes and teeth of a demon, but I began to realize that this little beast was only interested in a cozy place to sleep. Perhaps spiders were not all such a nightmare after all. Tucking the friendly critter into my shirt pocket, I continued on my adventure.
Thank you, Sarah. Beautifully read.
Thank you.
So I'd be interested to know if the children at home think this is a more exciting and interesting story now than they thought it would be when they saw the plot. I personally think that this is a more interesting story than it could have been. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I agree.
What is it that makes it interesting, though?
Well, there's lots of description mostly. And then, so when you describe the spider, it kind of makes it look really, really scary and as if it's going to kill you. So that kind of adds to the dramatic feeling.
Yeah, well, we've used loads of different techniques. In this first paragraph, we've really set the scene by not just describing what's around us, but how we're feeling. So we've started with a verb, trudging through the dense rainforest. We've described how the character is being sort of almost attacked by the vines. It's an effort. It's difficult walking through this rainforest. The character is tired and sweaty. Droplets of sweat formed on my forehead, trickling down my cheeks. Like walking through glue, we've used similes, we've used metaphors, we've used all the five senses. The ground was alive with crawling insects. So we've got nice metaphors there as well.
Yeah.
But we've also varied our sentence lengths. I marched on is a nice short sentence, followed by a long sentence. Above me, trees block the sky, only allowing small glimmers of light to squeeze through, etc., etc. So we've got this real variety of techniques. And that's what makes the story exciting, not the plot or structure. So again, really simple, walking through the rainforest, hear a rustle in the leaves, see a creepy spider, the spider's not so bad. Basic. I bet people at home could manage that in an exam as long as they've practiced their lovely description skills. Who thinks that they could manage that? I'd like to see in the comments. So, Sarah.
Yes.
There was a title we used in one of our group classes, wasn't there? Which was The Journey Home.
Yes.
You've done that one bit with me before.
Yes.
That one actually came up in an exam recently. I can't remember which exam it was, but a few of my students said, The Journey Home. Or, no, I'll tell you what it was. It was a Birmingham exam that one of my students did where it was something very similar to The Journey Home. And he used a very similar structure to what we'd practiced in class. And we used in class that similar 4-step structure of keeping the story very simple, encountering something potentially scary on the way home and resolving it. So I just thought maybe we could have a look at that story and do the opposite of what we've just done, where we look at the story first and then analyze the plot and structure. Should we have a go at that?
Yes.
And then finally, what would be really nice, if you're happy to, Sarah, would be to look at a piece of your writing.
Sure.
So this one is the journey home. Why don't you start this time?
Okay.
And then I'll do the second and the tiny third paragraph.
With the screeching of the school bell ringing my ears, I flung open the doors and flew down the steps. Finally, I was free. Heaving my backpack over my shoulder, I sprung out through the school gates and took a deep inhalation of fresh air. I was greeted by the smiling faces of flowers in bloom, planted in rows along the street. Like a bird freed from its cage, I skipped along with a twinkle in my eye. After hours of mind-numbing misery, just the sight of lush foliage filled me with a warm glow. So engulfed in joy, I barely paid attention to which direction I was going. Snapping myself out of my daydream, I noticed that my surroundings were growing less and less familiar. Where was I?
Peering around, the full, luscious trees were becoming more naked and bare. Their spindly branches were gnarled fingers beckoning me further into the unknown. Grey mottled stones jutted out from the ground around me, with faded grooves carved into each one. Some were crumbled and others strangled with moss and ivy. Unsure of what to do, a knot began to tighten in my stomach. It seems I had absent-mindedly found my way into some sort of gloomy graveyard. The sun was now blocked by the tangle of dry branches above, and a dense mist settled along the path. The knot tightened further. Plodding on, the path weaved and wound in many directions, taking me on a labyrinthine journey. Rather than making my way out, I only seemed to travel deeper into the nightmare. Retracing my steps, the confusion only worsened. Was it left? I muttered, or was it right? It was at that moment a snaking vine wrapped itself around my ankle like a cold, dead hand. In horror, I bolted. Fearing for my life, I sprinted faster than I had ever sprinted before.
Wheezing and panting, I eventually spotted the glorious light of day at the end of one of the paths. The way out, I sighed. Rushing towards it, I exploded through the gate and collapsed to my knees in the warm glow of the sunlight. Again, I was free. Catching my breath, I surveyed the scene. Around me were familiar houses along a street I recognized immediately. A wave of relief washed over me. It was my road. Staggering towards my house, my weary legs carried me towards the front door. Upon entering, I wasted no time in slumping into my favorite chair. It welcomed me like an old friend.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
So, similarly basic structure. Tell me what the kind of broad plot points of this story are, Sarah.
Leave school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
So the first paragraph is when I leave school.
Yes.
Second paragraph.
When you encounter something scary.
Yeah.
And the third paragraph is maybe the resolution when you. So the third paragraph.
Well, the third paragraph is just there for effect, really.
Yeah.
It could have been part of that second paragraph, but I split it up just to place emphasis on it.
Yeah.
And then that last one
is resolution.
Yeah, just resolution, finding my way home. That could not be more basic. But if I wrote the story, I left school one day and I was walking home. All the trees were very nice. But then I got a bit lost. I was in a graveyard. It was really scary and I felt really scared. I tried to find my way out, but I couldn't. Eventually, I just ran home and I found my house again and I was really relieved. I sat in a chair. Phew. It's the same story.
No, but it doesn't sound as like good because when because this one was written in a lot of detail and had a lot of literary devices, so it made it much more like rhetorical questions like where was I? It makes it much more
Yeah, where was I as a rhetorical question at the end of the first paragraph really keeps that reader engaged, wanting to read on. And the fact it's a short sentence is effective too. By the way, did you notice? It was at that moment a snaking vine wrapped itself around my ankle like a cold dead hand. That's quite similar to one that I used in the previous story. Where is it? Tangled vines wrapped themselves around my ankles like hungry snakes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm a cheat. I've used quite a similar simile. Say that 20 times fast. I've used a similar simile in two different stories. Tangled vines wrap themselves around my ankles like hungry snakes, and a snaking vine wrapped itself around my ankle like a cold dead hand. Now, I've used snaking versus like hungry snakes. I've used like a cold dead hand rather than like hungry snakes. I've mixed it up a bit, but it's the same idea, isn't it? It's the same detail.
Yeah.
So this goes back to what I was saying earlier. You don't have to think of brand new, shiny, sparkling ideas every single time you write a story. As long as they're appropriate and relevant, you can recycle them. And that's what I've done. So I'm just as much of a cheat as anybody else because I know which phrases I like and which, work best. And so I like to reuse them. If you've got word wheel books, if you've got a descriptionary, there are literally thousands of phrases like those in categories like nature, colors, animals, seasons and weather, five senses, emotions, verbs, adjectives, openers. And in the elementary one, there's even one on places, which has a section to do with the beach, parties, the park, at home, the shops. They're there for you to steal them. I won't sue you if you write one of my similes in your essays, as long as you learn from it. I've never threatened to sue any of my students, have I, Sarah? Not that you know of. Well, maybe I'll make an exception. I'll see you in court. So the important thing is that everybody understands that point. Now, we've been going for about 50 minutes. Shall we end off by looking at a piece of your writing?
Yes.
Now, I thought when I read so this is a story that you did for me just in the last week as one of your homework pieces for our creative writing course that you're currently on, which if people are interested in joining my next course, there are 2 creative writing courses in January, February. You can choose between a Thursday or Sunday slot. There are also 2 comprehension ones. You can choose between a Wednesday or Saturday slot. And there's also a there's also a critical thinking course, which is going to be on Monday evenings. And you can see it all on LinkyThinks.com/classes, which is in the description above. So Sarah, what was the task that I gave you?
It was to write a letter to your friend in America about a very dramatic event that has happened.
A dramatic event that has happened. So I said it could have been anything from a baby being born or getting a new pet or anything like that. Yeah. And you wrote yours about getting a pet. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll read it through. I'll give you some suggestions of how we could improve it because we've never looked at this together, have we?
No.
So this is good because it saves us looking at it in class. You're going to get a more in-depth little review with me now. So I'm going to let you read it since it's your story. Okay. And here it is. You can read it from the board, or you can read it. I know you've got it in front of you as well.
Yeah. Dear Sandy, it has been some time since we last spoke, and I must apologise for my silence. You may forgive me, however, when I tell you why I have been too busy to write. It has been quite an eventful month, to say at least. I hope you are sitting comfortably, as it's quite a fiasco. It all started when I came home from school a few weeks ago. Arriving home, a four-legged surprise awaited me. Something I had been longing for came hurtling down onto my legs. Her olive eyes shone like stars, and her fluffy fur was softer than a marshmallow. Was I imagining things? Were my eyes deceiving me? Without wasting any time, the puppy smothered my face lovingly with licks. For her adorableness and her glittering eyes, I could think of no name except for one, Twinkle. Despite her cuteness, little Twinkle was a mega troublemaker. I have to confess that she was a chewing machine. From munching my stationery to my mum's favourite handbag to my report card and even my homework book, which apparently earned me a detention, this puppy had tasted everything in the house. She nearly chewed my MacBook, had I not been quick enough to notice. As if that was not all. One time, when I tried to put my shoes on, a slimy glute dangled down from the sole. When I put my foot in, it got soaked in a sludgy slop. Seriously, I have to train this dog somehow. Irrespective of how mischievous she is, I have developed a great fondness for her. Lately, I have been surfing through Google and YouTube for some guidance on how to train your dog. I will soon update you with more information about Twinkle. Goodbye. Yours lovingly, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. So this is the first time you're actually going to hear my feedback on this. I promise everybody this is not rehearsed. Sarah is getting live feedback from me at the same time as everyone else is hearing it. So thank goodness it's a good piece of writing. Somebody has already commented, beautiful handwriting. It's true. I always say this about Sarah. What a joy it is to turn over a page and find a piece of writing looking like this. Now, not everybody has got beautiful calligraphic handwriting like Sarah, but they can make it lovely and neat. And Sarah's handwriting, for the most part, is beautifully neat, and her presentation is, for the most part, totally legible. I always say, don't I, Sarah, that if you don't pay attention to presentation, all of your lovely ideas can go to waste, even if people can read it, because the examiner has got maybe hundreds of papers to mark. And if they open another essay and it just looks all scruffy and horrible, you're going to put them in a bad mood before they've even begun. It's
the same as writing nothing, because if you write nothing on your paper, the examiner has nothing to mark.
Well, if it's illegible, if they can't read it, then you're absolutely right. You may as well not have written anything. If they can't read it at all, they can't mark it. But also think about first impressions. As humans, we respond to first impressions. If I cooked you dinner, Sarah, I like to use this example, don't I? You've heard me say this before. You know what I'm going to say. If I cooked you dinner and it was the yummiest, tastiest dinner in the world, and I promise you, this is going to be the most delicious meal you've ever had in your life, and I prepare it and I bring it over to you and I put it on a plate in front of you and it looks and smells like dog poo. It doesn't matter how nice it tastes. You'd be looking at it going, ugh, ugh, ugh. And I'm going, no, it tastes really nice. I promise, just eat it. Would you? No, but ignore the smell. Ignore how it looks. Eat it. It's going to be delicious, I promise.
No, it looks too disgusting.
Right. You've lost your appetite, haven't you?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with an examiner. If you present work that looks like dog poo, they're not going to want to read it, even if it's a brilliant story. So presentation is very, very important. But let's get to the content of your work. So Sarah, first of all, what I really like about what you've done is you've treated that letter writing format as an excuse to tell a story, which is a really good thing to do. You formatted it well. Might have been good to maybe write some addresses. Yeah, just to make it more like a letter. And I know you ran out of space here, but we wouldn't put the sign off at the end like in the other corner there. I really like how you introduced the letter. I apologize for my silence. You may forgive me, however, when I tell you why I've been too busy to write. It has been quite an eventful month, to say the least, not at least. To say the least is an expression which means, you know, almost like in a nutshell, it's been an eventful month. There's a lot more to it than that. I also like how you introduced the story. It all started when I came home from school a few weeks ago, Ellipsis. So now I'm really chomping at the bit. I'm really on the edge of my seat wanting to know what's happened. This paragraph, I love your description of the puppy. Olive eyes shone like the stars. Fluffy fur was softer than a marshmallow. Maybe don't put two similes in a sentence together. Maybe split those up. And I actually like the marshmallow one better than the shone like stars. I like that repetition of rhetorical question. Was I imagining things? Were my eyes deceiving me? I think that's lovely. Can I give you a little tip for what you could have done in this paragraph that maybe could have made it even more exciting?
Yes.
Rather than revealing straight away that there was a four-legged surprise waiting for you, maybe we could leave a few clues for the reader that hint at what the surprise is going to be. So maybe
like a dog ball and then you smell dog food.
Right, those sorts of little clues, so that it's obvious what's going to happen, but we don't reveal it straight away. So arriving home, I was greeted by a bowl of water lying on the kitchen floor. That's odd, I thought. Who's left water? You know, and you can sort of have all these questions going on in your mind. And it might be then that you go upstairs and you see that there's, I don't know, a puddle of wee on the floor. Maybe not. But you might leave all these little breadcrumbs for the reader to pick up and start hinting. And then by the end of that paragraph, you could reveal and describe, or even in the next paragraph, reveal and describe this amazing treat and how you felt about meeting this gorgeous puppy. I love your variety of openers, despite her cuteness. I like how you open with verbs like arriving home. I like how you open with an adverb, seriously. And a very fancy word there, irrespective, which I guess means regardless or despite the fact she was mischievous. I think you've done a really good job. It's simple, and everything we've been talking today is about simplicity. So you've done an introduction, you've introduced the puppy, you've talked about how she's cheeky, and then you've concluded by saying how you're going to solve that problem in the future. Yours lovingly, Sarah. I think it's great, Sarah. I think it's really good. Need to just a couple of places where we just want to work on presentation so that we can read it. Like, for example, your S's are beautiful, but your capital S's look just like bigger versions of your lowercase S's, don't they? So sometimes it looks like you've done a lowercase s at the beginning of the sentence. So just keep an eye on that. However, very fortunate that the first time, you know, we went straight into looking at this story, never having looked at it before, and it turns out to be a really good one. So I think you've done well. We're going to start wrapping things up. If anybody's got any questions for me or even any questions for Sarah, type them into the chat now, and I'll try and answer them. In the meantime, let me remind you, while I just wait for people to ask their questions, let me remind everybody that there are, I mean, they might have gone already, actually. I've not checked while I've been doing this, but there were 2 places on tomorrow's masterclass for ideas on the spot, how to think of ideas in an exam context. And we'll be talking about planning and how to actually do a proper plan in an exam setting tomorrow from 1:30 till 4. So you can go and book that with one of the links in the description. There are also the LinkyThinks resources, like the word wheels, and like the descriptionary. And if you order them in a surprise storytelling parcel, like we saw earlier, then you can get that poster with your sentences to start a story, sentences to end a story. And there's also, on a slightly different topic, you can see behind me one side of the how do I feel wheel for describing emotion, but also for mental health and emotional literacy, how to talk about your feelings. Somebody has asked in the comments, Sarah, how is your handwriting so good? Have you got an answer to that? Have you practiced?
Yeah.
Some people have just got beautiful handwriting. I am not blessed with the same gift, unfortunately. All the comments here about how nice your handwriting is, Sarah, they've not even got any questions for me. Now, Giovanni has said, do cliffhangers have to end with ellipsis? Great question. Sarah, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, they don't have to end with ellipsis because they can also end with rhetorical questions. So cliffhangers are there to create suspense. So you can say maybe like, maybe you can end with ellipsis, but you can also end with a rhetorical question
hang on, let me help you. Like, with all that had changed, would we ever see normality again? Or I'm left only to wonder what mysteries lie in store for me. Or questions buzzed around my mind. Why this? Why me? Why now? So those sorts of things, you're absolutely right. A rhetorical question could be a cliffhanger. Also, people often use ellipsis wrongly. They often use it to cut off a sentence. And that's fine in speech, but I wouldn't use a cliffhanger at the end of a story like that, where you go, and then I saw a ... That's not really a good cliffhanger ending to a story. You might say, what lay before my eyes was like nothing I'd ever seen before, ... So you've ended the sentence and you know that what's going to happen next is really dramatic and interesting and fascinating, but you don't cut off the sentence. Somebody else has asked, when did Sarah start writing stories? Look, you're an inspiration to people, Sarah. When did you start writing stories like this?
Not so long ago.
That's actually really important, an important thing to say. A lot of people start with full-length story practice a bit too soon, in my opinion. When you first started working with me, Sarah, we weren't working on great long essays, were we?
No.
What were we practicing and developing your skills with?
Like planning and that sort of thing.
But also just great descriptive sentences.
Yeah.
How to perfect a descriptive phrase, how to string a paragraph together. We used the word wheels a lot. We used all sorts of techniques for developing your description skills and building in a joy and a love of words and phrases. And that's why you're so articulate in your writing. Also balancing sentence lengths, things like that. Somebody else has asked, what is hyperbole? What's hyperbole? Sarah, do you know? It's okay. That's okay. So hyperbole, it's the one that's spelt hyperbole, Hyperbole. Hyperbole is a technique where you exaggerate for effect. Yeah. So if I said after a great big meal that I was the size of an elephant, well, as well as that being a simile, it's also a great big exaggeration. It's hyperbole. What could be another example of hyperbole? If you described a scary teacher as, if you described if you said that his booming voice could be heard around the whole school, or the whole, his voice could be heard from the moon, or something like that. That's obviously an exaggeration. It's hyperbole, but it's expressing.
Or when your heart is pounding, people on the moon can hear it without any.
Yeah, that's exaggeration. That's hyperbole. Somebody asked, what's the best way to start and end a story? There's no one way that's perfect. There are many ways to do it, but you don't, as we said earlier, you don't have to start right at the beginning. You don't have to end right at the end. You can go straight into the action. Think about that flowchart, the temperature plan. Go on the online resources section of the LinkyThinks website, and you can find lots of worksheets like that that will help you with it. And don't forget to use the word plot as a coupon code to get 10% off today only. Somebody has said, do you two do this stuff often? Well, Sarah and I see each other twice a week at the moment, don't we?
Yeah.
Because you're in the comprehension class as well. Any other questions? Someone's asking if I'll draw a dog. I'm not going to do any drawing today, I'm afraid, but we will do some more drawing classes. Somebody's asking how old you are. Sarah is 10 and she's in year 5, so she's still got a little bit of time before doing her 11 plus exams. Someone's asking, is it better to use pen or pencil? Well, there are different rules in terms of the exams. I would say better to practice with something like a friction pen where it's nice and neat, but you can rub it out. Yeah, because pencil can be a bit smudgy, but you also want to be able to edit and correct your work neatly. So everybody's different there, because if you've got quite neat handwriting and you don't make too many mistakes, then maybe just a normal pen is fine. Okay, we better start wrapping it up. Somebody has said, what is a metaphor? Well, we can possibly, yes, thank you. Sheena has said, depends on the exam instructions regarding pen or pencil. So just to reiterate that, it depends. Sarah, do you want to tell everyone what a metaphor is quickly, and then we'll wrap things up?
So it's when you say that something is something. So if you say maybe someone is as fat as...
well, if it was as fat as her, then that would be a simile, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Blueberry, you could say the person is a blueberry.
Okay, yeah. So it's essentially when you use figurative language to say something that isn't literally true, but helps to describe something. So a simile might be the clouds were like giant marshmallows floating through the sky. That's a simile because you're comparing it.
Yeah.
But a similar metaphor would be what?
It would be you're saying something is something.
So the clouds were giant marshmallows in the sky.
Yeah, it's not literally that thing, but you're just saying it's like.
Yeah, you're making a comparison.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up. Some people asking how to book a LinkyThinks course and what days are the comprehension classes. You can see all of the information of the scheduling, the costs, the timeframes, all on linkythinks.com/classes. You can also see that in the description at the top of this video. So have a look there. And someone said, when am I going to do a live session again? Well, not for the rest of 2020. This will be my last one of 2020. So I will see you next year. Sarah, I'm going to let you say goodbye to everyone and let everybody give you a lovely round of applause. We'll listen out the window. Everybody's clapping you. Everybody's clapping you. Oh, they're cheering. They're saying more. Don't go, Sarah. We love you. Wow. Well, you've got to. So why don't you say your goodbyes and sign out? And thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Bye, Sarah.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Wasn't she brilliant, everyone? What a star. Sarah is a model pupil and always has a smile on her face. So it's a pleasure to have her in my classes. So thank you to everybody for joining me today and for the other Facebook Lives that I've done in the last few months. Thank you for all of your lovely feedback on the LinkyThinks descriptionary book and the word wheels and all of my different resources and services. You know, this community on the 11 Plus Journey group is such a delight and everybody's so lovely and positive and helpful. So if I don't see you before, have a lovely Christmas, holiday season, Happy New Year, and I will see you soon. You can follow LinkyThinks on Facebook and get in touch via there or through the LinkyThinks website if you want to ask me any more. And have a lovely evening. Bye, everyone.